I've been real busy since I left the university. Haven't had a chance to talk to groups for a while. Been working really hard in the new position at Pipestone. So just kind of want to give maybe a 30,000-foot view from our perspective on some of the challenges to regional PRRS projects as we move forward. And we talk about high PRRS season, which is basically the fall through the early part of the winter into January, for example. It's been a tough season, the last 2 years especially. You know, I've worked with this disease for probably 25 years now almost. The last 2 years, I think, 2011 and now, the toughest times I've seen. 2011, we had a lot of filtered farm challenges in 2011. A number of our filtered farms became infected. We hadn't seen that before. We had some regional project setbacks right in our own backyard. We had a very nice regional project. We basically eliminated virus from a large area, and that county quickly became infected in a very, very short period of time, a matter of weeks. And we posed the question, is this the new normal? At that time, as our swine group got together and debated what was going on and how do we prepare for the future, is this what we're up to now? Has something happened where the virus is different? Things are more challenging than before. And is this type of a season going to be the new normal? Well, I'd say it is. What's happening in 2012 and now into 2013, it's truly the new normal indeed. But what's a little different about this fall is our filter farms did great. We buffed them up a bit, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what was bothersome to us this fall was the infection of non-filtered farms in very isolated regions. Parts of the country where we didn't think we needed to filter because they were so in such isolated areas. And these were farms infected with viruses that had no connection to other farms, viruses that we did not see in our dendrogram. So they kind of basically came out of nowhere. We didn't know where they came from. And we've heard a little bit from Dr. Wright about the challenges to the regional project in Stevens County. So really, what's going on and what can we do? Well, as far as what's going on, I think in our group, our research group, the work we're doing would start to support the fact that the airborne risk of this virus is increasing. And the way you look at it, this is a very, very smart virus. It's developing ways, in our opinion, to challenge traditional tested airborne biosecurity measures, such as farm location, i.e. building it out in a very, very sparse region, and filtration. And the measurements we're taking, as we take air samples around some of our filtered farms and actually measure the frequency, the dose, and diversity of airborne challenge, there's an elevated number of PRRS virus-positive air days. There's more virus in the air as far as a daily challenge than what we've seen in the past. Dose, there's an increased quantity of virus in the air, higher than we've seen in the past. And diversity, there's multiple variants of the virus floating around these farms. And so it's like these farms are constantly under challenge, almost from the air raid perspective. Multiple bombers hitting them with large weapons on a daily basis. So as we collect this information, and we're still working on this, and we'll present this eventually when we get it put together, but the message we're getting is there's a great deal of challenge that these farms are under in regards to the airborne route that was different than the past. So what can we do? If that's the case, what can we do in regards to the airborne spread of the virus? 3 options, I think, that our group has talked a lot about: collaboration, filtration, and vaccination. So let's take each of these 3 and just again give a broad overview. Collaboration is very important. You know, all the things we talked about that we heard from Dr. Wright, we got to keep working together. We can't allow these setbacks to break up these projects and break up all of the collaborative efforts that have taken place. But we might need a different mindset in certain cases. And as a mindset of control instead of elimination, a more comfortable mindset, a more realistic mindset for producers, especially in dense regions. It's risk management and in a survival mode with obviously many, many challenges that producers face besides PRRS. I think we need a vaccinated negative herd classification. I think we're going to see more farms that are negative to field virus but want to vaccinate to reduce their risk. We need that type of a classification scheme for our farms. We've got a number of farms that have taken this approach now in our system to reduce the economic loss should infection occur. They're not infected with wild type yet, but they've chosen to vaccinate. That's a different frame of mind than we've used in the past. In addition, we must continue to communicate. We must share outbreak data. We have to talk. We have to let each other know what's going on. We can't stop doing that. Be it control or elimination, or whatever the mindset, this is essential. We have to share. We have to map. A picture's worth 1,000 words. We've got great technology now. That map is so important. Again, independent of if it's a control or elimination project, having that map is essential. We got to keep testing. And obviously, if there aren't funds, you got to pay for it yourself. You got to keep testing, and you got to understand the status of these farms so we can make these accurate maps. And then we have to sequence. I just asked, the question is, can we do it faster? Will there be technology in the future that will allow us to get same-day sequence or two-day sequence? The sequence is so important to understand virus movement in an area. So that's obviously a challenge for the VDL. So you see the very important need for the VDL. And we have to support the laboratory. Without that laboratory, we are in trouble. So we got to help getting funding for that laboratory in any way we can. Okay, so collaboration, we still have to work together. What about filtering? Air filtration does one thing. It reduces the risk of new PRRS virus introductions through the airborne route. That's all it does, okay? It doesn't stop the virus on the trucks. It doesn't stop the people carrying it in. But it's very effective at reducing, not preventing, but reducing the airborne risk. And here's a graph from a publication that we put out this 2012 of a large data set that I worked with Pipestone, Swine Vet Center, and Fairmont Veterinary Clinic for basically a 1.5 to 3.5 year filtration period. So we've got 3 cohorts of farms that have filtered for a 1.5 years, farms that filtered for 2.5 years, and then farms that filtered for 3.5 years. Each of those black diamonds is a new virus, as determined by sequencing. And so this is the period of time within each cohort prior to filtration. And you can see the number of black diamonds. Now, the other side of the graph is the period of time, the equal period of time against 1.5 years, 2.5 years, 3.5 years, according to cohort group, after filtration. And so look at the reduction in the number of black diamonds, but you still see some, don't you? So it doesn't prevent, it reduces the risk of airborne spread. And some of these were not airborne introductions. Okay? So it's a tool. It does one thing, and it's not perfect. Limitations. These are dynamic entities. These filter systems change over time. They age quickly. The attic environment where these filters are placed is not a filter-friendly environment. It's hot, it's cold, it's wet, it's dry, it's dusty. These filters are not set up for these environments. It causes breakdown of materials, impacts filter durability and lifespan, and results in air bypass. This is important information to know so we can manage our expectations and we can take care of our systems to reduce these risks. You can't just stick them up there and leave them alone. You got to take care of them. Another challenge, I think, is there's a whole lot more virus in the air than there used to be. The dose is higher. And these filters are basically commercial entities that are rated against various levels of particle challenge. They don't stop everything. And it's the same with viruses. Filters can be overwhelmed if challenge of PRRS is significant. We've done this, we've published it before. They're not perfect. Some amount of virus can get through if the challenge dose is high enough. We have to understand that. Here's some data from some farms. But airborne challenge. Here's air samples from 4 different filtered farms, basically an air sampler outside of the farm collecting air on a daily basis. This slide shows you in logarithmic scale the quantity, the dose of PRRS virus, live PRRS virus in air samples collected around these farms. And then what I want to show you here is look how much more virus is present here than a lot of our historical measurements, which were made over the in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. So 2.5 logs of virus, for example, 3 logs of virus, historically speaking, versus 4, 4.5, 5. So 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times higher quantity of virus outside these farms, okay? So that's different than what we'd seen before. And we're repeating this now to see if it's accurate, and we'll see what we learn. But this was our first attempt to try to look at this. March of 2012. Additional things we have to pay attention to about the filter system are the filter boxes. You know, look at those boxes. Make sure they're still working. Don't bet on the spray foam in the red can. That's going to change. The clips. If you have the type of filter box that has clips that hold the filter in, have you checked your clips lately? How many are actually working? Those clips hold the filter in place. And without those clips, you get bypass. Insulation. Pile it on. Great filter. And the pre-filter is very underrated. The pre-filter has a definite effect on its own. So that pre-filter is important too. So besides the filter itself, there's all these other pieces of the system that need to be paid attention to and taken care of. Thirdly, vaccination. This is specifically modified live vaccination of the Boehringer type. Okay, so I haven't done any work with anything else. So I have to designate that. This is work we've done with the MLV from Boehringer. We've looked at it 2 different ways, therapeutic versus prophylactic. So therapeutic, coming in on an infected population of pigs and vaccinating. Prophylactic, vaccinating ahead of time and then challenging. So 2 different ways of using the vaccine. The traditional prophylactic way, where we vaccinate ahead of time and challenge later, versus therapeutic, where we come in on top of an infection and see what happens. Basically what we're seeing, and we've published some of this and we'll publish the rest of it later, is it improves pig performance and it reduces virus shedding in the exhaust air. So there's less virus being shed outside the barn. So the bottom line with vaccination is you protect yourself as well as your neighbor. So this is a tool that's got advantages in area control projects. And so it should not be ignored. It should be considered. In addition, don't overlook the other known risk factors we know about PRRS virus spread. There's been a number of genetic sources infected this fall. It's snowball season, right? So we can't forget about the trucks. And remember that slurry has a mechanical as well as an aerosol risk. And maintain constant oversight, taking care of people, training them, watching them, being sure they're following the rules. Check the filter system daily and do regular biosecurity audits if you're filtered or not. That's still important. So to conclude, the airborne risk of PRRS virus continues to increase. We'll have more data on proving that statement. Regional programs are at a crossroads, but they're still important. We just need to change our mind on how we think about managing them. Collaboration is more important than ever. We can't break down all the good work that's been done. Take advantage of any and all tools that are available and support the VDL. And finally, as the virus changes, so must we.